seen things you people wouldn't believe.
Hey, what's up guys? I'm Brian. This is Tech Therapy. Thank you so much for joining me as we check out some gaming on the brand new TCL QM6K Mini LED. Now, I've already done a review on the QM6K and I did touch on gaming within that video, but it is so good that it deserves its own gaming video. Without further ado, let's check out the TCL QM6K Mini LED in gaming on both PS5 Pro and PC. Thank you so much for watching. All right, guys, let's do it. TCL QM6K Mini LED Gaming. We're going to start on PC 4K 144 Hz with Horizon Forbidden West. Now, typically in regards to mini LEDs, I'd never start a gaming video with 4K 144 Hz enabled. It's been on mini LEDs for the last few years, but I'd rarely used it. It's always felt tacked on and typically hurts the image in terms of its pixel response with the heavy motion blur, and the picture quality tends to look muddy. That is done. Here with the TCL QM6K, it looks phenomenal. And all of the PC footage you're seeing within this video was used with the 4K 144 Hz setting enabled. It looked that good that I never turned it off. Now let's go into the NVIDIA control panel and show you how to enable that. When you look down at the control panel, your TV will probably revert back to 4K 60. Going into the PC settings where the resolution is down at the bottom, you'll see only 120 Hz is available. Opening the TCL game bar, move all the way over to menu, go down to high frame rate mode, enable that. Takes a few seconds to do its thing. When you go back into the NVIDIA control panel, 144 Hz will be there automatically. Enable that and you're good to go. You'll also see, if you go down to 1080p in a moment, you'll see up there in the banner, I love that that banner comes up. Very helpful. You can also go down to 1080p and you'll see without switching anything that 288 Hz is also available, which we'll cover a little bit later on in the video. But for right now, let's check out 4K 144 Hz with Doom 2016. My favorite game to test 144 Hz on, and it looks absolutely stunning. Now, the image quality is absolutely ridiculous. Remember, this is a mini LED. This is the new TCL QM6 with the HVA panel. The local dimming is absurd. Now, this is not the replacement for last year's Q6. The QM6 is an entirely new beast. It matches up better with the higher end QM7 last year, and even that isn't accurate to what the QM6K is. This whole new lineup, which will include the new QM7K, is its own entire beast. You can tell by the image quality, this is a mini LED that is in their entry to mid to high, and look at the local dimming. Typically, mini LEDs will look very washed out as we go over to Black Ops 6. And you're not seeing that at all, especially in game mode for the TCL QM6K. Typically, mini LEDs will look very washed out when game mode is enabled. We'll go through the game mode settings in a little while. But again, typically 144 Hz for me is an OLED only thing. All the mini LEDs that I've tested and spent time with at 144 Hz, including TCL, I would not enable that. I wouldn't even use it, because the picture quality, in my opinion, would suffer. Not the case here at all. I would only rock it this way. Now, some of these games moving into Ghost of Tsushima on PC will appear dark. That is not a negative. I actually want the image to be beautiful and rich with the contrast ratio intact. There's other games later that are brighter and more colorful. We're going to jump through a ton of games as we turn the lights back on. Ghost of Tsushima is all about shadow detail and bright specular highlights. What really sets the TCL QM6K apart from even last year's TCL lineup is not just the HVA panel. There's a new chip with new lenses that have a new reduced optical depth an all new software powering everything. What that means is they're doing much more with less zones, making the QM6K much more affordable. The local dimming is better than even last year's, as there is no brute force happening that may crush the blacks where you lose detail, as you move into something that's much more colorful and Ratchet and Clank. Now you're seeing me show a lot of console games on PC at 144 Hz. The reason I'm going to do that, and also do that later with some Xbox games, is I can basically show you console gaming on PC. We'll also run into some PS5 Pro games shortly, but Ratchet and Clank on PC, 144 Hz, looks incredible. Again, there isn't any heavy motion blur, making up for the fact that the pixel response isn't as fast as an OLED as we move into Dead Space Remake. Now, as we move through Dead Space, look at the local dimming. There is almost zero blooming. You can see up in the corner that is that floating display letting you know how many frames we have or what mode we're in. If you look to the left, you can actually see up in the corner, I have the Steam overlay up as well, so you can see the true frames per second that my graphics card is outputting. But look at the specular highlights. I mean, this is a mini LED, everyone. And this is not their top of the line. We still have the QM7K on its way to me. When that shows up, we'll compare these two TVs, and we'll also do a gaming video on the QM7K as well. Now let's go over some of the game bar and game mode settings. You hold down the menu and the game bar comes right up, and you can see all the information on the top. And now we're here on the PS5 Pro. And you'll see the usual suspects are here. Aiming aid. You have 3 different game genre presets: original, FPS, and RPG. All of these can be customizable. A lot of them are a little too cool. We'll make all of them warm throughout the video. What I love about what I see from QM6K in regards to its settings, as there is a ton of flexibility of image. You also have HDIG available, which I'll show you a little bit later in the video. I'll quickly toggle it on and toggle it off, but in a moment I'll show you that on PC, and it actually does look very good. But a lot of flexibility. Can change the theme, different colors. There's a cartoon preset here, which I'll move back to green. As you move back to the game presets, I would definitely go in and change each of these, warm them up. Even the FPS one is very bright, and if you tone down the tone mapping a little bit, it's absolutely beautiful. Showing you some of the settings here. Now for the PC input of the footage you have already seen, that game mode has been altered by me. This is out of the box. I would right away change the gamma to 2.4. You have 3 different tone mapping settings to play with. I'll do a separate gaming settings on the QM7K when it arrives. It'll cover both the QM6K and the QM7K. That'll be a settings video. But again, a lot of flexibility. Now, dynamic contrast is disabled here. That can be enabled with VRR disabled, and also that higher frame rate feature turned off. Local contrast is the local dimming. I'll turn that on high. But again, a lot of ways to change the image, and the local dimming is very impactful, which is so important for mini LEDs when game mode is enabled. As typically with mini LEDs, a lot of these features, especially in the color area, are not impactful. They are with the QM6K. I like the dynamic color enabled. Color space you can change from auto to native. Now, a lot of the clarity sections are grayed out here. Again, those can be accessible with VRR and that high frame rate setting disabled. And they may be accessible with those enabled. I still need time to play around with the individual settings in that regard. But for right now, the gaming is absolutely amazing, and the feature set is full of different options. And switching back to PC, same game, 4K, 144 Hz. We're going to enable HDIG, and I do like the way it looks. Specular highlights are still there. They're where they're supposed to be with HDIG enabled. And I do prefer HIG in a lot of these games. But we'll go back and forth throughout the video. God, it looks so much better on PC. Moving into Demon Souls on the PS5 Pro. This is definitely one of the games that benefits from the PS5 Pro. This one I'm happy to leave dark, and why? You're looking at the heads-up display. You're typically looking for blooming, and it's not there. The transitions from light to dark are there on purpose. I don't want this game to be bright. I want you to see the difference in the contrast ratio. We move in to a brighter environment. In a mini LED, a lot of that previous section can look very washed out, and that's where blooming would typically show up, and there was nothing. Deep, dark, crazy contrast. Let's jump into some fighting games on the PS5 Pro with Tekken 8. Here you're looking for rich color and bright specular highlights with the sparks flying everywhere. Now what I noticed is that any of the images that appear washed out are typically games that look washed out on any type of technology, even OLEDs. We're jumping through different arenas to go from a darker, warmer setting to a cooler outdoor setting with sunshine and water. Tekken 8 does have that watercolor look. Let's move into Street Fighter 6. Same kind of color palette on Street Fighter 6, though it's a different type of technology in terms of how they're getting their image. It still has that watercolor look. Into a deeper, more rich arena. Definitely flows well. Again, no problems with motion blur or pixel response at all. It feels extremely responsive. As we move into some SDR gaming next, moving to Marvel vs. Capcom 3, I believe, on the PS5 Pro, we're looking for any kind of change in brightness, and I'm not seeing that here. Mini LEDs are excellent for SDR, and the QM6K is no different, going from a darker environment to now a brighter one. The transitions are very quick. As I've mentioned, there isn't any problems with motion blur. Extremely responsive all around. Now moving into a game that benefits from the PS5 Pro more than any other is Stellar Blade. This game is very shimmery on the standard PS5. The atmosphere is unbelievable in this game. And it is a drab looking game in places, but it is gorgeous. Putting it on a mini LED is something I typically do not enjoy, but again, felt good about putting it here on the QM6K, which I'm blown away by if you can't tell. Now moving into Astrobot, which is very colorful. Now I do think this is a very pretty game. It's very vibrant, very saturated. This does not really have any benefit for the PS5 Pro, but I want to be able to show you something a little more cartoony, just like I did with Ratchet and Clank. Moving into Gears of War 4 on PC. Now when I run things on PC, guys, I'm basically covering Xbox Series X as well. This game is close to my heart as this game came out right around the time HDR was becoming commonplace on TVs and consoles. Even though the PC version of Gears of War 4 is not in HDR, playing it at 144 Hz is absolutely amazing. And as I mentioned, I'll never go back to playing below 144 Hz on the QM6K. It's that good. Moving into Black Myth Wukong, which we would never be able to hit 144 Hz on, even with an RTX 4090. The real frames are up in the left-hand corner of the screen with a Steam overlay. But look at the image. Ray tracing in full effect. The game is completely maxed with DLSS balanced. This is a mini LED, guys, and really an entry to mid mini LED for that matter. Look at the contrast ratio. Turn the lights off. How rich is this image? And the Black Myth Wukong can look washed out at times. And in the past, on any TV at 140 Hz, especially mini LEDs, it would be a muddy, blurry mess. Not the case here. Phenomenal looking. Moving into one of the best games in history, Halo 3 on PC, 4K, 144 hertz. If you guys wonder why you'd want 144 hertz with PC, it's going back to your favorite games, running them maxed at a higher frame rate. Now, I'm covering a lot of PC games here, but what does that show you? It shows you that the TCL QM6K would be amazing for console gaming, as well as we move into Halo Reach at 4K 144 hertz. And what I mean by sticking with PC for a lot of the video is I'm pushing this TV so hard with 4K 144 hertz. That means for console gaming, it's a breeze. You don't need 144 hertz for console gaming, but the image looks amazing with 4K 144 hertz for console. It's easy. Moving into Days Gone on PC, again, 144 hertz, looks absolutely phenomenal. This game also looks amazing on PS5. I'm throwing a lot of games at you guys now. But so impressed with this TV. Again, in the past, especially with games like Resident Evil 4 on PC, I would have disabled 144 hertz or not even shown it till the end of the video as a simple feature that you're glad to have, and I'm rocking it the entire time. This looks like an OLED the majority of the time. Now, we're not quite there yet, obviously, but for a mini LED, especially one at this price point, it's absurd. Now, the QM6K is going to be available in 50 inches, 55, 65, 75, 85, and 98. The 85-inch and the 98 will have a matte screen, which you can see on my CES coverage of the QM6K. Moving into Forza Horizon 4, that's a lot of sizes. And that's where you would choose this over an OLED. If you can get a larger version of this over an OLED, you gotta go for it, having these features and local dimming and the contrast ratio. Really, really hard to beat. Especially at sizes where most OLEDs can't go, namely 85 inches and 98 inches. So it puts you in that situation to be able to choose something that's massive, of very good quality at this price point. Now, talking about price, I didn't mention it much in the video, as the QM6K is actually that good where price isn't the biggest selling point. I don't consider it a value TV. The problem is it is a value TV. That's why there's so much hype surrounding the QM6K, is that for the money, it's going to be very hard to find anything that touches it, that even comes near it. Which is why there's so much hype around the QM6K, and in my opinion, why TCL wanted to get it out before any other TV on the market by at least a month, maybe even 2 months. Now, it also sets the stage for the QM7K, which hopefully will be here very soon. It puts a ton of expectations on that TV's release, but I don't think TCL minds that. They couldn't wait to get this TV out after speaking with them at CES. Now, as we finish up the amazing BioShock on PC, now you see me running a lot of older PC titles. I want to run them in 144 hertz to really test the QM6K. And I wanted to run a good amount of them natively and not use DLSS to really be able to see if there was any artifacting or motion blur, which you can see here, there aren't any. You'll be running this on YouTube at 4K 60. Now, is everything perfect? No, there's many things that I would change, but at this price point, it's as close to perfect as there is for what it is. Again, this is their entry QM6K going into the QM7K. It is their entry to mid to high. That whole tier is where this TV enters. But for the price point, what do you really want it to be? The audio is incredible. It's got subwoofers attached to it. It's got two HDMI 2.1, 4K 144 hertz. It's an HVA panel. It's got a ton of new features and functionality with it. Now, do I wish there were 4 HDMI 2.1? I guess that's a place where I can nitpick it. And maybe I wish it was brighter and probably had even better local dimming. But at this price point, it's really hard to ask for more. Build quality is also excellent. Check out my full review of it to see how it looks and performs in other content as we move into the legendary Alien Isolation on PC. Now, I mentioned this earlier in this video, is typically I would hold off on the 4K 144 hertz aspect. It's something that I would enable towards the end of the video unless I was reviewing an OLED. This is the first mini LED where I enabled it right in the beginning and kept it on throughout in regards to the PC footage you're seeing. And you're seeing me do more PC than console, as a lot of the games that I'm using on PC are available on the PS5 Pro and obviously the Xbox Series X. So what you're seeing is the best version of those games running on this TV, pushing it very, very hard. So as I mentioned earlier, it'll run the PS5 Pro or Series X or PS5 or Xbox One X games with ease without any problems at all. Running into the Tomb Raider games, one of my favorite games from back in the day. Again, pushing these games 4K 144 hertz without DLSS, a lot of the older titles you see, and we're also still pushing them at max settings. That way I can't blame frame generation or DLSS for any artifacting that we would see, and all these games look amazing. And again, I can't stress enough how good the contrast ratio is in terms of its local dimming. And while I wish it maybe was a bit brighter, I really don't want it brighter if it compromises the local dimming and washes the image out. That's so important to note when we talk about mini LEDs. If you want them brighter and it's brighter without purpose and the contrast ratio suffers, to me it works against it. I want that contrast ratio to be intact as we check out another legendary title, Spec Ops: The Line on PC, 4K, 144 hertz. And again, the beauty of PC is going back to games that you maybe played on the PS3 or 360 and seeing them run this way, but having the TV to do it is super important. Now, 4K 144 is amazing, again, for older titles. Let's move into 1080p 288 hertz. Now, before you change it in the control panel, whether it's NVIDIA or AMD, make sure you go into your Windows and change it here in the system settings under display to 1080p. Then go over to the control panel and then you will see it there. You'll be stuck at 144 unless you do that step. And it does sound like common sense, but you'll have all kinds of scaling issues if you don't change it in Windows first. And the game I'm going to use to test it on is Doom 3, as there is that setting within the menu. A lot of games aren't going to have that. That shows you how forward-thinking its software was. You can also see the banner there from TCL letting me know that it's a 4090, it's 1080p, 288 hertz. That banner that comes up is super helpful, especially for me testing, as there was times where I wasn't changing it in the control panel, that it was accurate to let me know that I was still in the wrong resolution and hertz if I was stuck at 60 or 120 or 144. I can see here it does work. I don't know if it's going to appear blurry on camera, but it's here if you want it. If you actually want to be back at 1080p, I cannot go back to 1080p regardless of how high the frames are, but it is here for those of you that want to use it for certain games. Still hard to find something even 1080p that you can run at 288. Now the 4090, my graphics card strength is definitely not at 1080p. I think it becomes pretty average at 1080p. It's overkill there, and there are some problems, but it does work well here. You can see it up there in the top banner. And it is very smooth and very, very fast. I'm just not sure if you would really need that, but again, at this price point, it's here, which is pretty incredible. And it does function properly as long as you go into Windows settings. Let's move back into 144 hertz at 4K to really show you how gorgeous the image looks. And transitioning back was super simple. We'll just go back into your Windows settings first. That is most important to avoid scaling issues. But unbelievably happy with the TCL QM6K in gaming, both on console and on PC. And again, at this price point, 144 hertz, something I left on the entire time. It was amazing. Now, in closing, the QM6K Quantum Dot Mini LED is so easy to recommend simply because it is so affordable and so feature-packed. Again, HVA panel, Mini LED, 144 hertz on 2 HDMIs. And the last thing I should have brought up is those HDMIs aren't used for the eARC. That is HDMI 4, so you don't lose that HDMI input. So check out my full review of the QM6K. I'm Brian. This is Tech Therapy. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing. Love you guys. Take care.
It's better to burn out